I'd like to take a look at the updated Scholar page for 2019-2020 school year. You can find it at scholar.urbandaleschools.com. We kind of went with a simplified look. Before even logging in, there's links up here. We do have FlexiSched still linked up here, and every once in a while we do some surveys, and so some of those surveys can be up here, so it's a nice central place that people can go easy and look at some stuff they need to. You can log in, and when you first log in, you're going to come to what we call the student or teacher dashboard, and there's several things on here that you can look around. A lot of the things we used to have on here: silver cord ladder, Sudoku, the weather, all your classes will be here, some Urbandale stuff, things like this. There's something a little different on here. The little form right here, it says enrollment code, and then it has a button for enroll. We'll come back and talk about this here in a little bit, but this is there's a very easy enrollment process for enrolling students in your courses now. So just remember that this thing right here is on everybody's student dashboard, this little thing. We can go to a course. I'll just pick my physics course. When you're on your physics course, up here in the left corner, there's always this three little lines. It's a kind of a navigation drawer where you can jump to certain places and jump to other courses if you want to use that. That's closed by default. You can also jump to your courses up here under My Courses. For a lot of pages, the upgrade threw an announcements activity onto your page. So if you see an announcements activity on your page and you don't remember what that was, that's probably because it was added onto it. You can just simply delete that. The harder thing is that when you have like your sections, like I have 3 sections here, and if I like click on the first section, I have all these activities, and then in the second section, there's other activities. I'm not sure why this happened, but I think it maybe had to do with what course format you were in. A lot of those activities would all be put into the first section. So some of you, and I'm sorry about this, some of you might find that all of your activities are all in that first section, and you'll have to kind of rearrange them again and drag them around to get into the sections you want. Hopefully that won't be too hard for you, but it might not be all that pleasant. So those are a couple things that kind of happened with our upgrade, and I can't figure out a way technically around it. So hopefully you're not one of the unlucky people. Let's look at some of these buttons up here that we have across the top. So this first one here is to turn editing on. It used to be, there was a little kind of gear or something over here. Now there's this nice little green button to turn editing on. And when you do that, you'll be able to scroll down and see all of your sections and stuff. So when you're moving things around, it'll probably be easier to have your editing on, obviously, and to do some of those things. And you can, now it's red, and you can click it and turn editing off again. This one you won't have. This is a site administration thing. This next one is a little key, and it says enrollment codes. So we'll talk about that just for a second. If you click on that, like I'm in physics and I click on that, what I see is for every group that I've made, all the different groups that I've made and the overall course, there are these little 6-digit or 6-character enrollment codes. They're just, Scholar will just automatically generate those for every group that you've ever made in your course. If you want to regenerate these for whatever reason, down at the bottom, you just click in the box and click Save Changes, and it'll regenerate all of these codes. So enrollment has become really easy now this year. All you need to do, if you want to enroll everybody just in your course, you would email them this code or put it up on the board on the first day. And when everybody logs in on their dashboard, if you remember, log in to Scholar, on their dashboard, there's this enrollment code form. So they can just put an enrollment code in there, click enroll, and then they'll see your class down here in their list. Some other teacher can give them a different enrollment code. They'll put it in here, click enroll, and they'll have that class in the list. So the enrollment process has been made way easy. And of course, remember, a lot of you want to have your students in periods or groups. So if you create your groups first, then you're going to have enrollment codes for every group. So like this is group period 1, period 6, period 8. So I could give that this one to my period 1 students. They would be enrolled in my physics course, but they'd also be enrolled right into the period 1 group. So that makes it nice and easy. Okay, this last little button up here is the course management panel. So this is basically a lot of the same things you had in the past, but it looks a little different. It drops down this panel to access all kinds of things about your course. So this first column here is activities. So if you want to see all the questionnaires or all your quizzes at the same time, you can click one of those. This is the question bank, and most of you that use question banks know what all these things are for. Course settings, this is how you edit your course settings right there. Gradebook, there's the reset when you're at the end of the year when you want to reset your course. This is something new. It's called a recycle bin. If you accidentally delete an application or an activity off of your site, which it has happened often, I won't name names, but instead of me trying to get that back on for you looking through backups, you have like about a week to just click on the recycle bin, and you'll see the things that you've tried to delete, and you'll have a little restore button next to it, and you can put that back on your course. So that's kind of a nice new feature. In the user links, we have enrollment codes, which is the same thing as that button that showed all the enrollment codes of your stuff. Gradebook, participants, this used to be called users. You can enroll users in your course manually by clicking on this one. Groups, you can set up groups of students, and you can set up groupings of groups at this place. Different enrollment methods, there's course participation reports and some other things there. So this is the course management panel, and there's a lot of good things in there. A nice feature to make your courses a little bit more individualized is at the top of your course, you'll have these banners. There's a banner here that you can put a background image in. So it's like physics equations and things like this. The default banner that's in there is this kind of red one here, and you'll notice it's actually kind of animated, kind of moves around a little bit. So you can actually put animated backgrounds as your kind of course header here. Like I can show, and actually when you look down here, it actually shows the ones like this one here, computer science principles, like binary stuff, as animated kind of a thing. So you can put some really nice things in here in the background. It's really cool. So the way to do that is you actually click on course management. You're going to edit the course settings. And then when you scroll down a little bit, you'll see course image, and this is where you put it. So you can get an image, go on to Google Images, and you can actually put in GIFs that have a background image, and you can just drag them in here. If you have one in here and you don't want it in here, you just right-click on it and click Delete, and that'll delete that image out, and then you can drag in your new image. Then you come all the way down the bottom and click Save and Display, and that image will then show up on the top there. Here's my IED one. I have a kind of that's an inventor background image there. So it can be just a static image, but if you can have a little bit of animation going on in the background too, and it kind of sets your course off and makes it look a little bit more individualized. Okay, so a major new thing that I've been working on this summer is an SBG export. So a lot of people have been asking, if I do like regular assignments and someone gets like an 83%, what what is that on like the SBG scale. So this is what this is going to do. There's a couple things you have to set up in your course for this to work, and I'll go through those in a second. But if I'm I have to actually be on, like if I'm on my physics page, I need to actually click on the front page of my site for this to also work. So if I would have clicked on it back when I was on that last page, it wasn't going to work. It actually would redirect me to my dashboard. So I want to make sure I'm on my actual front page of my course. And then I can click on course management and click on SBG Export. And it's going to, if you saw that, it said loading physics data. So what this is kind of like a kind of a grade sheet, and you can do a lot of things with it. You can filter tables and stuff like this. So what this does is going to take every single assignment or quiz that I have in Scholar, and it's going to import into this table on what their grades were. And so, I mean, I put in some false names right here now, but we have first name, last name, the student ID number, the period or number of the section groups that you've named them. And then there's all these assignments, and these assignments have abbreviations that you have to enter into Scholar. I'll explain that here in a second. You want these to be kind of short little names so that you have a lot of columns on here and your table looks pretty good. Because you could get a lot of assignments, and you see you scroll over, you have a whole bunch of things. You have a longer name for these assignments, and if you can't remember what a certain little short assignment name is, there's going to be a table at the bottom here, Assessment ID Reference Table. If you click on that, it'll say, okay, 4.3 is actually Jedi Trial 4.3 Rotational Dynamics. And so you'll have a little reference there that you can remember what these shortcut things, shortened names are. I have it defaulted to put in all of your students and all of their scores converted to SBG. So if you want to know what they actually got, like what the raw score was, you could click Show Raw, and that'll show all the raw scores. I'll go ahead and do that. Click Show Raw, and here's all their raw scores. So this one here was that all of these are actually out of 10 points. So 9 out of 10, 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, 7 out of 10, so on. And it'll give an average down here of all your students, what they all got on that particular score. You can show all, and that'll actually show the raw score, and then right next to it, it'll show it the SBG converted thing. So a 9 out of 10 is a 3 on the SBG scale. A 3 is green, you'll see, so it'd be in the A's. An 8 out of 10 is a 2.5, and that's B, and that's blue, so that's a B. A 7 out of 10 is like 70%. That's like a 2 on the SBG scale, and that'd be a yellow. That's a C. A 6 out of 10 is a D. It's going to be a 60%. So 1.5 on the SBG scale, that's red. That's going to be a D. Anything that's just white, like all of these here, those are Fs. Now you'll notice that they're all on the SBG scale. They're all 1s. If you see what their actual score is, like there's a 3, that's a 30%. There's a 50%. There's a 40%. All of those are Fs. We don't, in SBG grading, we don't have different degrees of Fs. So once they're below a 60%, they'll be assigned a 1 for any of those assignments or assessments. Okay, you can filter things over here. So like this is all my students. If I have period 6, I can come up here and the filter, I can just do P6, and that'll automatically filter and just show me all my period 6 students. And which is nice because that actually averages just those scores, so you can see what certain classes did compared to others on a certain maybe test or an assignment or something like that. You can also type in, like, start typing in a name like last, let's see, 23. And of course, that's just one student right there. And of course, the averages will be exactly whatever they got because it's averaging that particular thing. If I don't have anything in the filter, then it gives me all the things. I can hide all. If I click hide all, that's going to hide all the exported Moodle or Scholar scores. and I'm going to have just basically the demographic information here. But then what I could do, so I can hide all, and then I can click select, and I can just select maybe these first 3 standard base grade scores, something like that. So if you want to do that, you can always click the select button, but it's easier sometimes if you just want to show a couple assignments, hide all of them and then select a couple. If you don't hide them all first, you click select and you have to unselect every single assignment that is in there. Now the reason I want to do this is because I have export features up here. So if I want to export to PowerSchool, I can click this first button and it'll make a CSV file with just all those students, because that's all of the students, and it'll just do just those 3 assignments. And so that'll export whatever I have filtered. So if I have period 6 in here filtered, it's going to show me just period 6 students, just their scores, and if I click any of these exports, it's going to export just that. This next one is Excel. If you hover over them, it'll tell you. This one is a PDF. And this is copying all the data that's on that particular table in case you want to paste it into something else. The only other thing on here is I can click the email button. That'll actually give me the email addresses of all of my students, which I have doctored out right now. And what you can do is you can come down here and click on this email filtered, and that'll open up your email system, and it'll put all of your students, or all of the filtered students, into the blind carbon copy field of your email. So if you want to email everybody in your class real quick, you could do that. If I want to email just period 6, I can actually, you won't be able to tell this probably, but P6, you'll notice that now there's less students here. That'd just be period 6 students, and I can click email filter, and that'll just email everybody in my period 6 class. Click show SBG, and it'll show all of my standards-based grading scores again. Okay, so I'm not sure exactly how PowerSchool is working totally on this, but you'll be able to convert any Scholar scores into SBG and just go ahead and import them in. So like AP Biology, this isn't quite set up yet for in the Scholar course what you have to do to see the export. So if I click on the SBG export, you're going to get this instead. So there's no table that comes up, and it tells you some directions of what you need to do. There's 2 things you have to do in your Scholar site to get this awesome data table. The first one's easy. You go click on student grouping, and it gives you directions. So in your Scholar course, you're going to click on the course management icon. You're going to click groups. You're going to create groups with no blanks. So like Herman 1, Herman 2, or period 1, or physics 1, physics 2, things like that. You've probably automatically do all this stuff in your Scholar course anyway. You're going to divide your students into those groups. You're going to click groupings. Here's what you might not do, but you need to do it this way. You need to click groupings, create a single grouping named students, capital S, students. And then I want you to put all of those groups that you've made, all the period groups that you've made, into that grouping. A grouping is a group of groups. A group is a group of students. So once you get all the students into the groups, then you take all those 6 groups or whatever and put them all into the grouping of students. And that'll help this page work. That's the easy one. The harder one is for every item that you want to come out of Scholar and into this data table, you need to put in a small ID for that particular assessment in Scholar. So the way to do that is you turn course editing on, you edit the settings of an assessment, you go into a section called Common Module Settings, which you probably never ever go into because you've never really had a need for it. But click Common Module Settings, and there's an ID number for each assignment, and you need to enter something in for that. I would go something really, really short and abbreviated, like T1, or to come up with your own little system, but do a small abbreviation. Don't type in a big, long name. It'll make your table look bad. So put in a small name, and you have to do that for every single assessment and quiz that you want to actually be on this page. Some things you might not want to have come into this data table, so just leave it alone. It's fine. But anything you want to come in here so you can see the scores, on a big table, you need to put a short ID number for the assessment in Scholar. Once you have both those two things accomplished, you never have to do those again. That'll always be good. And you'll always have a nice exported standards-based grading table. Okay, last thing I want to show is not actually new, but it might be new for some people because I've had people asking me about this, and I just don't think people maybe know about it. We haven't had a lot of Moodle courses or tutorials in the last couple of years, so I want to show you this because this is an extremely valuable thing. I'm going to turn editing on in my physics course. I'm just going to show you a couple. So if I go in the Jedi Trials section, these are all like tests that they take all year. You'll notice like Jedi 1.1 measurement. You'll see underneath it says restricted, and it's not available unless, and there's two things that make it have to happen before it's available. The first one is you belong to a group in 1.1 measurement. So if you're not in a particular group, you can't have access to this test. It's completely hidden. That's what hidden otherwise means. It means it's completely hidden from the student. The student's never going to see this test unless they've completed the ELAB 1.1. So I don't let my students take a test until they've reached a certain readiness level. So that means they need to do they need to complete a certain percentage of the ELAB 1.1 measurement, and you can do anything you want on that to make sure how it's going to be marked complete. For me, it's actually 25%. If they do 25% of the problem set, then I'm going to assume that they know how to do enough. And once they're done with 25% of the test and they submit it, or 25% of the ELAB and they submit it, this test can turn on for them if I put them into the other group that they can get into. So how do you do these restricted things? So I'm going to edit this test. It's really easy. I'm going to edit the settings on this particular test. And you're going to go, you've been in here before, you're going to go all the way down to restrict access. So you can add different restrictions to this particular thing. And you can do student must or must not, match all or any. You can do any of the following. And so I started adding restrictions. And the first one I did was, I'll click on add a restriction to see your options. So I can add a restriction on if some other activity is completed. I could do it on the date. If they get a certain grade on something, if they're in a certain group or if they're in a certain grouping, and some other things. So I add a restriction, and I chose, for this first one, I chose grouping. So they're not going to see the test unless they're part of a grouping, and then I can choose the grouping. Got all these groupings here. And I chose 1.1 measurement. Now remember, that's a grouping, which means it's a group of groups. So the reason I do this is I create one grouping for every test I take, and I create a group named exactly the same thing for every test. So I have a group and a grouping called 1.1 measurement. And then I take that 1.1 measurement group and I put it into the 1.1 measurement grouping. The reason I do that is because if I want an individual student to take a test, like on a makeup thing or something, I can take that student and put them into that 1.1 measurement group. And because that 1.1 measurement group is in the 1.1 measurement grouping, the test will be available to them. And the reason I do all that is because I also sometimes want to be able to give the test to an entire period, like period 8. So what I can do is I can take the group called period 8, and I can put that group into the grouping 1.1 measurement, and then everybody in that whole period can take it also. But to be able to do it individually, I needed to make a 1.1 measurement group that I had in there that I can throw kids in and out of. I don't know if that made sense or not, but it works really slick, and if you are confused and need some help with it, please email me and I'll come and show you how to do that. You can, on this I here, I like to hide it entirely, so if they're not eligible for the test, it doesn't even show the requirement. If you keep this eye open, it actually kind of just grays out the requirement that they know what the requirement is before they can see the test. I have another restriction on here. I put in activity completion, ELAB 1.1 measurement, and so you can choose all kinds of activities in your class. And then you can choose must be marked complete, must not be marked complete, must be complete with a passing grade, or must be complete with a failing grade. I can do all kinds of things. I've left must be marked complete. And then you can save that. Now, what does that mean that this eLab 1.1 is complete? Well, if I went to the eLab 1.1 thing, I'll go ahead and do that. Let's see, physics, eLab 1.1 measurement. So I'm going to edit this. Okay, so on this, if I look at restrict access, I don't have any restrictions on this. This is open for people to do all the time. But under activity completion, I have students in here, so I can't change this now. But I can do activity completion. I can say, make it be complete when a student has just viewed it, or a student must receive a grade to complete this activity. Okay, I can require a passing grade or all available attempts completed or whatever. Okay. So I can decide what means completion on a given assignment. If you click require a passing grade, so then how does Scholar know what the passing grade is going to be? Because you can decide whatever grade you want. Well, the way I would do that is I'd come up to where it says grade, and where it says grade to pass, I put in what grade is to pass. So this is, eLabs are all 100 points, and I put in a 25 points as they need to get 25 points, and then it'll consider it to be complete for the activity completion. And then, of course, the test would be able to open once it knows that this has been completed because they have gotten 25% of the thing. And in the directions, I actually tell them to complete this eLab, you need to correctly answer at least 25% of the problems. So, and I've had times people want to take a test and all of a sudden, I can't take this test, it won't open for me. Did you submit the eLab? No, I did not. So they know they can't do certain things unless they're shown that they've met certain readiness levels and things like this. Okay, so that is restricting access. That is was a little confusing there probably. You can really get mixed up when you're trying to kind of make a course out through your course. And if you have any questions or you need any help at all, that's why I'm here. So you give me an email and I'll come over and help you figure things out. So those are some basic things that are new and maybe not so new in Scholar. You're going to find a lot of other weird things and stuff that can happen. I'm just going to let you kind of experiment on the rest of the stuff. But if you kind of get lost on something and you're trying to figure out how to do something the old way, you can go ahead and email me on that also. I guess one more thing while I'm here, while I have the settings turned on this, there's a new thing called course blocks. So instead of having blocks down the side, sometimes that makes the page kind of hard to read and stuff. You can just take all your blocks and throw them up in this section up in here. And then they'll all be in here available to students, and they can just click on the course blocks and it drops them down and they can see all the courses. It's just another way to make the page a lot cleaner. So that's one more thing for this incredibly long half-an-hour video. So if you have any questions, please email. Hope you enjoy the new Scholar, and I really hope that it works.